Really? Oh shit, everybody go, you know what, cancel your accounts, go sign up with my code now. No, I'm kidding. Not really. Are going to talk about class identity. So for those of you that were here last week, you may remember. Please hold as well. I got to get my talking points over on the other screen here. You might remember that I gave you a bit of homework because, you know, I'm a dink like that. You're welcome. So, yeah. Jeez, I feel like somebody was just about to come through the floor. You know what? I'm really not surprised. I didn't expect anyone to do it. I honestly did not expect anyone to even remember. Because I wouldn't have. Can't expect someone else to do it if I wouldn't do it, right? But I believe you, Emerson. Don't worry, I believe you. Those dogs, they've been eating homework for a long time. You know how much homework the dogs ate of mine? Absurd amounts. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about class identity and what that means. Like for I feel like it's gonna have a little bit of variance for every person. And more than that, the variance is going to come from a level of importance. Literally came home one day to my dog who had half eaten my textbook. Were you mean to it or something? Did you starve it for a day? Not give it any love, not give it any pets or cuddles? It just felt like eating your homework. I don't know. Our dog used to chew on the baseboards, the corners of all the baseboards in the house. He would just sit there and gnaw on them. So my stepdad took Tabasco sauce and sprinkled it on all the spots where he would chew. Yeah, he only chewed it one more time. And then when he tasted the hot sauce, he never went back. Smart dog, I guess. I don't know. It was funny. Ah! Oh, okay. They're back. Telling my daughter I'm going to do that to her fingers. Is she like a fingernail biter or something? I mean, it works, right? It worked for the dog. Maybe it'll work for her too. But then again, most kids are smarter than the average bear, so they might realize, oh, hey, it's not on there right now. I'll be okay, or I'm just going to go wash my hands. Maybe it's a good way to get them to wash their hands. So I want to know what your thoughts are on, A, is it important to you? I wrote down these points in no particular order. They were just discussion things, topics, things that came up to my mind. I just wrote them down as they kind of came up. Just talking points, really. But I swear, somebody's going to come flying through the ceiling. You hear all that? Kiddos are playing up there. Can I zoom? I probably can, yeah. Please hold. Whoa. There it is. I mean, to me, the biggest things, like we can get into what class identity is to you, to each person, to each class, so to speak. But for a lot of people, they don't care, right? They just want to get in there, play, they want to be able to do all the things with one character. And we've talked about that. We've seen that in other games. Even in WoW, the Druid, the Paladin, they can tank, they can DPS, they can heal. Now those are combat specific abilities, but it's a really combat focused game. Ashes is going to be a lot of out of combat stuff too, which I think has a huge opportunity to promote and enforce class identity. So, like, I think I think class identity is important. I don't want to play one class and have somebody else be able to basically do the same thing. Maybe if they can do it at a very basic level, but not not to any degree that they can replace the main class role, right? So if you're a rogue, for example, and somebody else can detect hidden things in the environment, like treasure rooms or whatever, or if they can stealth, do things like that, it kind of takes away from the rogue's identity of that's kind of what it's known for. It's like, to me, class identity is what makes you unique from everybody else, what separates you from everyone else. And if somebody else can do that, that's, for me, no fun. It takes a huge element of that player decision away. I feel like class identity is something that's going to be really strived for by Intrepid, because they want those impactful decisions to really be a thing, right? But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts? What do you think about, what does class identity mean to you? What is it? Is it important to you? Do you want to have differentiating combat abilities? Do you want to have differentiating play styles? Do you want to play a class that can only heal, maybe do a little bit of damage, of course, for solo stuff, but they're not going to play the role of a DPS really ever. They're not going to play the role of a tank really ever, right? Like, a cleric should be there to, when I think of a cleric, I think of, this is your healing character, right? Like, that is what they bring to the table. That is what they do, what they are known for. No other class, no other archetype or mashup is going to outperform that cleric main. And what's the cleric? Cleric is a high priest or something like that, I think. Like that should be the epitome of restoring life via the essence. Nobody else should be able to should be able to come close to that. Obviously, other cleric mains with other secondary archetypes will do very, very well and probably be able to fulfill that job, but you're still, when I talk about classes, and at least in Ashes of Creation sense, I'm talking about the primary archetypes more than anything. The secondary archetypes are just additional flavors to those primary archetypes, as I understand it right now. So the primary archetypes, those main 8 classes, is what I'm really focused on here. And the cleric, nobody else should be able to out-heal that. A bard might be able to provide some support healing, but nobody's going to out-buff or out-debuff, out-enhance your group or your own character the way a bard will, I would expect. And that unique playstyle, I think, is super important. And some games lose that. Some people prefer to not have those very strict roles. Now, a strict role does not mean that it's not an engaging playstyle, that it's not diverse in your abilities and the things that you can specialize in and choose to do, but you still have a certain role, a certain a certain hole that you fill, a void that you fill within a group composition. You agree that AOC will have strong class identity? Yeah, I think it will. I feel like that's something that they have really strived for from the get-go. Obviously you're going to have a variety of different DPS, and like even melee DPS you're going to have multiples of, range DPS you're going to have multiples of. But they're going to bring unique playstyles and unique abilities. Beyond that, they also bring out of combat abilities. And this is where I feel now we really start to get into something a little bit deeper, a little bit more meaningful, and a little bit more creative when it comes to developing class identity. Giving that, like, for example, the rogue has the ability to detect hidden paths and doorways in dungeons and likely the open world. That they bring that to the group. It's not an in-combat ability, though. It's something unique that they can do. They can stealth and do subterfuge and cause mayhem within guild wars and sieges that other classes can't necessarily do. And for me, that is super exciting. I don't like in some games where a healer DPS first and heal when he want to. Yeah, like the Paladin or the Druid in WoW. Don't get me wrong, I loved playing them. They're a lot of fun to play, and there is a neat aspect to being able to do all of those things. Some better than others, depending on how you've spec'd and geared yourself, but the ability to do all those things at any given time is really neat. And it creates its own kind of unique play style. But when you can kind of fulfill all the roles, you're not really, you kind of lose that identity, in my opinion. It's more than just a name and the flavor of spells that you bring to the table. Class identity to me is so much more than that. I've played games like Rift, where you could switch talent trees to be any role you desire and be just as effective. However, it made the choice of class irrelevant. Also, it did reduce the need for me to go to meet people who could fill other roles. Yeah, when you can kind of fill whatever role is necessary and needed, it becomes a lot easier to form a group and quick for whoever else is willing to play what they want to play. I was going to say Final Fantasy 14 as well, with the job system and the fact that you can basically learn any job. The thing that, you know, but at the same time, that is kind of what Final Fantasy has been about for a really, really long time, way before they were ever an MMO. Final Fantasy has had the job system as kind of an originating character design, and that I think players are just that's kind of what they expect when they play Final Fantasy 14. There is no class identity to that at all, though. It's just not there. Mage Tank was fun though. Mage Tank in WoW was fun too. I remember, at least in Gruul's Lair, but it's neat. Like, but to me that's different too. Like I did play Rift a little bit a very long time ago. However, I never got that far into it, and I do want to touch on the ability to swap specs so freely and easily too, which I'm really happy to hear we won't be able to do so easily in Ashes. However, the thought of encounter mechanics that require, say, a mage tank versus a normal tank is really neat, and it does promote an outside of the box thinking and a different way of it, structuring a group. Perhaps Gruul's Lair in the Burning Crusade. There was, I think, some trash mobs in that raid that put a buff on themselves that's blocked like 75% of all spell damage, and I think it might have boosted your damage as well, or boosted your threat or something like that. But mages could spell steal that, and essentially then they would become the tank, because those were caster monsters. So they would cast and they would only do 25% of their normal damage to that one mage that had that spell steal. So a normal tank would have just got absolutely annihilated by the thing. So it makes for a cool encounter mechanic, but the mage isn't overtaking the role of tank per se. They're using their unique abilities to be able to be the tank and for that specific monster or an encounter. FF11 is different. A bard in FF11 is pure support. All they do is run around and buff and debuff. D-duff. Duff beer! I could go for one of those right now. But the option or opportunity to just up and change your spec at any given moment to suit whatever the group's need is, whatever content you're going into, to go into a dungeon or a raid and be able to change your spec for each and every encounter to try and optimize. Not only does it optimize the fun out of the game, which is really what min-maxing is all about. It's optimizing the fun of the game, I feel. Although for some people that is fun, so I don't want to take that away. That's my feelings on the matter. But when you can just go up and change your spec freely like that, or super, super easy, it really does, again, take away from that important decision making and getting used to building your class efficiently to be able to handle multiple encounters and maybe not min-max individual ones. I do like the idea of like a dual spec system like WoW introduced in Wrath of Lich King, and I know a lot of classic people are really hoping it's going to come back for Burning Crusade, but not so that you can just have two specs that you can swap between freely. You would have one that's a PvP focused spec and one that's a PvE focused spec. In a game like that, I think something like that is very fair and appropriate, so that players can freely enjoy the game that was created to play without having to sink a ton of time into farming the gold to have to respec when they want to alternate between the two. Having said that, in a game that is going to have PvP happening everywhere and anywhere, you're probably going to want to build your class accordingly. It's not like you're in Ashes, you're just going to jump into an instanced raid and all of a sudden you don't have to worry about someone coming up and killing you or another group coming up and trying to contest you for a boss. You're going to have to be prepared for that all the time. Unless you're in one of those couple of instances that are a little bit more individual narrative focused, you're going to have to be prepared for that. So you're going to want to build a character that can handle themselves in the world to some degree and still be able to, fulfill its role in a group in a PvE environment. Hope we see something like that. Add some creativity, ingenuity to the class. Absolutely. Having those types of mechanics where you're asking a class to step outside of its role in a group, but you do it in a way that it brings maybe some underutilized or often looked over or abilities. Maybe even some things that, if you're not spec'd into this ability, you're not going to be able to do this. But most people don't spec into this ability, so it makes you really sought after if you have it, right? At least for this encounter. It could be really, really cool that way. One of the other things I can think of off the top of my head, for Ashes at least, is the Ranger. I believe they are going to have an out-of-combat ability that they can detect traps and environmental hazards. Like, if you walk past that rock wall, it might collapse on you. So don't walk past it. Or, hey, there's a trap up here. Let's disarm it or whatever. I believe the Ranger has that ability. We'll have to see. But, yeah. Dread Katak coming in with the resub. My guy, 2 months. 2 months in a row, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Welcome, sir. How you doing tonight? Also, I got that emote updated. New ones in there as well. F11, you can change your job, but only in the housing, and you can't carry the gear. It had to be stored, so changing job was not simple. See, at least then you can't just do it in the middle of a run, right? Unless you obviously leave, go back to your house, swap everything around, and then come back. I would prefer to see like a cooldown on something like that as well, so you can't just freely do it super easily. It's going to be really interesting to see exactly what the criteria is going to be in Ashes for respecking or changing your secondary archetype. I know it's not going to be easy, and I'm really happy about that. Really, really happy about that. We talked a bit about the role. I do want to ask though, do you guys think that when you mix playstyles, like when you mix healing, support, tank, DPS into a single class, it doesn't have to be all of them, it can be any two, any three, whatever. does that ruin the class identity, or does that become the class identity? Like, take the druid in WoW, for example. They can tank, they can melee DPS, they can caster DPS, and they can heal. Depending on what part of the game you're talking about, or what era of the game you're talking about, they can do all those things quite effectively. It requires, up to 4 sets of gear, and of course 4 different specs to fulfill that. Otherwise, you're going to do, if you're not spec'd and geared for one of them, then you're pretty you're going to be pretty subpar in your performance of doing it, but you can still do it, is the point. It weakens it, but not ruin necessarily. Yeah, I thought class and spec are different. Yes, I would agree they are. I never thought to necessarily differentiate the two. I thought of spec as part of the class. But the spec does not necessarily define the class. The class should define the spec, I suppose, if we're going to think about it that way. And in that sense, yeah, a druid should be able to do a lot of different things. Now, should they be a jack of all trades, master of none? Like, they can do everything, but not on they can't do anything on the highest level. Those are best suited for the classes that really roll, that push into that direction. Like, in Ashes, are we gonna ever see the tank be able to output strong DPS? Like, if they pair up with a mage or a rogue or a fighter, are they going to be able to compete DPS wise with, like, if you have a tank fighter and a fighter, let's say, is the tank one going to be able to handle themselves? Or even hold a candle? Like, I don't think they should, personally. I think they should do more damage than the tank does as a tank fighter, but not more than a fighter, period. I'm curious to see how that one plays out. I think weaknesses are a huge defining factor for a class identity. For a tank, it should be based on the weapon they have. I think that'll have a big aspect of it. There are supposed to be, if I remember correctly, 3 different methods of tanking, 3 different styles. You'll have the sword and board, traditional shield blocking type tank. I think there was going to be a more, like a lighter footed evasion tank, where you focus on deflecting and dodging more than blocking and absorbing. And there was a third one, if I recall. Control tanks. There it is. Haha. I wasn't so far out to lunch. There will be different styles. So a control tank, I would presume, is more based on disabling your opponent. Could be disarming, slowing their attack speed, reducing the amount of damage they're able to do. You're kind of manipulating and controlling your opponent's ability to do any things. Not necessarily CC. Like, I don't see this being. It could be a stun lock, but I feel like stun locks are going to be very, very limited in this game. Because it already is a concern that's being brought up. We saw in the most recent live stream that tank stunlocking Steven was, and I think the other player as well, the other person was pretty strong. So, sidebar for a second. I'm gonna do some digging and see if there is a way, but I wanted to find a way where you guys can do like an !1 in chat or something, for example. It's not active yet, so don't worry about it. But you could do that, and it would add to a counter. And you guys would count how many times I say in one of these streams. Because I was sitting there last Friday, at just doing some trimming from our stream for YouTube channel. The amount of times that I say during a stream is insane. It's a lot. It is absolutely a lot. And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, man, I need to work on that. So it's on my mind right now, and I've already caught myself a couple of times saying it, and then a few more where I'm like, I want to say it here, but I'm not going to. Gonna try really hard to avoid that. So it would just be something fun, right? Just something for shits and giggles, and then like at the end of the stream or something, I'll just give out points or beards or whatever it is we got running, and based on how whatever the counter got up to, kind of thing. just for shits and giggles. Never want to count someone's speech pattern. You would probably not hear too much else of what I'm saying because I say it so often. So I love this approach, and I hope we see something similar in a lot of the other archetypes where there are different build options, but you're still there to fulfill a certain role, fulfill a job, right? Obviously, when they named this archetype the tank, they really pigeonholed it into a specific playstyle, into a specific role. It cannot deviate from that role, otherwise it just violates the name that they gave it for the archetype. I'd hate someone to count my F-bombs. Were you a sailor at some point, or you work construction? See, there it is. I didn't even mean to. Yo, Tavern, what's shaking, my guy? How you doing? Good to see you. Yeah, there you go. Do the one. There it is. I was almost gonna say it again. Like, it's my go-to segue word as I go into something, when I change my thought or try to go back on topic, or which is a lot for me because I'm always going off topic, as you guys are well aware. I just wanted to do it again, right there again. Anyways, I'm going to just find another replacement word. It's like you quit smoking because you're addicted to it, and what happens when you quit? Well, you find something else. Now you start eating ice cream or cupcakes or something. I don't know. Cupcakes. Why does it always comes back to food, though? So, class role. What do you excel in? That is what you excel in. I think is more important than what your weaknesses are when it comes to class identity. The tank, for example, the tank is defined by its ability to tank things. It says, hey, you're a piece of shit. Come hit me. Don't hit them. Fuck you. So the thing comes and hits the tank, and then the tank's like, haha, I'm a tank. You can't do any damage to me. They're not judged for their lack of ability to heal the group. That doesn't define them as a class. The tank class just has the ability to let it tank better, and I like the fact they made a different class for it, but a fighter with tank ability would be insane. And that is something we might see, right? Is if you're running a fighter main and a tank secondary, you have to forgive me, I don't remember what that's called, but I know we could go look it up. If you overgear the content that you are working in or fighting in, yeah, you might be able to actually effectively tank that content and do above average DPS for the tank position. Therefore, speeding up your runs. You're going to take a little bit more damage. Fighter and tank is a dreadnought. Whoa! Okay, that just sounds badass. That just sounds like it would be a nightmare to deal with. I'm starting to wonder if a fighter tank cross isn't going to be an absolute just PvP beast. So I think the strengths of the class are far more important than the weaknesses. What you're not able to do, while it is important, it's not as defining to me. Playstyle within combat. I don't know how much playstyle falls under class identity. I feel like the class kind of tells you a little bit of how to play, combined if you want to make proper use of it, right? Like as a ranger, you're not going to stand in melee range and try to swing your daggers at the whatever it is you're killing. You're going to try and stay at a nominal range where you get to use your bow and shoot things. So that's an important aspect of playstyle, but it doesn't force you to stand at range. The augment system is going to be huge, and that is a huge variable in playstyle for sure. But I think in terms of class identity, because like I said, we can't focus on 64 different classes for class identity. We have to focus on 8 for class identity, because all of these flavors right here, these are all just variations of Bard. So it's Bard plus this, Bard plus that. And it's just going to effectively enhance your ability to do your primary archetype. Having said that, it could be 64 class identities that we come across that are like, you can if you can stand there and watch somebody in a group fight something, or even solo fight something, and be like, oh yeah, that's a trickster. That's a trickster fighting over there. And just know that without like inspecting them or looking at the icons next to their nameplate when you target them or anything like that, just watching them play the game. If you can tell what they are, hands down, out of this matrix, I'm going to be beyond impressed. Like, I will be super, super happy if I can just tell which of the 8 they are by watching them play. Keeping in mind that they're all going to be able to wear whatever armor and weapons that they choose. So your gear does not define your class. The abilities and the playstyle is going to come closer to defining your class. Is it add 2 ability together, or does one get a % of the second ability, or does it change it completely? It's a modification. It's an enhancement of existing abilities, where it takes I think certain aspects or elements, depending what it is. There are a few of the archetypes here that do touch a little bit on augments. Was it the mage? Mage augments. So there are a couple here that do touch on the secondary augments that we've heard about or seen. I hope the aug system will be kind of like as a cleric bard. When I cast a heal, it also give an armor buff. It absolutely might. So I don't know if all secondary augments are going to offer 4 flavors of anything, but the mage offers 4 elemental schools of augmentation: teleportation, fire, frost, and lightning, or electricity. And this right here is one of the big reasons why I'm wanting to try a Scion out. Say, for instance, I'm a ranger that has a charge bolt ability as my primary active skill, and I've chosen mage as my secondary and applied the elemental to it. Or the frost element to it. I now have a frost charge bolt, and if I fire that frost bolt and hit a target, they may be freezing for a period of time as a debuff, and that might slow their speed. This is why, because the kiting potential here is insane. Absolutely insane. There is no melee class that's going to stand a chance against a ranger like this, I feel. Even that crazy ass tank. If a wizard applies a nuke on a target and that nuke is a frost-based nuke, those two stacking elements might then either further snare or paralyze and freeze the target. So there are a combination of effects that build up. A primary, secondary, and some ancillary effect occurs when those are combined. Here we go. There's going to be 4 schools of augmentation for each archetype. So you're gonna have a variety of flavors. One of the schools for the mage is the teleport school. You can take that teleport augment, apply it to your charge skill. Now, instead of charging X distance over time, you're going to immediately teleport to the target, dealing X damage and a condition modifier. School to your class ability, you would then instead, you would charge X distance upon reaching target. You would set the target ablaze if it's fire. You would electrocute them and deal with damage over time for electrical. So that's... as we would expect from this information right now, and that comes from not even a year ago, almost a year ago now, but close, is there's going to be 4 different flavors for each secondary archetype. So yeah, if you are having a bard secondary archetype, there might be certain buffs that you can apply to abilities. There might be debuffs you can enhance your abilities with, right? So if you were a rogue and a bard secondary and you put debuffs on something, maybe you can put an armor break or an attack break on one of your abilities. Dawson Gage, thank you for the follow. Welcome. Good to see you. How are you doing today? So that's going to be huge, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to make class identity vastly different for that rogue than just simply being a rogue, right? I don't know what let's see, what's a rogue bard? A charlatan. Is a charlatan going to be noticeably different when you watch them just go about their business than a cultist or a duelist or an assassin? Or are these things going to be super easy to identify that with? What up, chilling at nice. Welcome to the discussion, my friend. What else do we got? PvE and PvP. I feel like there's some classes are going to be far more effective in PvP than others, depending on the scale of combat that you're talking about. If you're talking about 8 people or more, then I think everybody's valuable. We'll have to wait to be seen. I mean, I'm sure there'll be certain compositions that are stronger than just simply, hey, have one of each primary archetype. But maybe not. Maybe there'll be enough synergy with everyone to really kind of stand above and all the rest. But in smaller form combat, where the 3v3, the 2v2, the 1v1, you're just general open world ganking stuff or arenas or whatever. I feel like PvP and PvE they're going to definitely affect your playstyle and your performance within those areas more so. Just getting into the hype behind Ashes of Creation, just trying to learn more, figure this would be a good place. Welcome. Indeed it is. There's several really good places to tune in, and I'm happy you stopped by, my friend. Tavern, you're too kind. Tavern is another one. If you're not following, check him out when he's on live. Because he does the same. He does these community discussions for Ashes of Creation as well. So that's playstyle within combat. For me, like I say, for me, it's just being able to discern and see what players are doing. What's the referral about? Referral is basically the referral link. If you haven't signed up for your Ashes of Creation account already, of course, free to do so. But if you use someone's referral link, then they get I don't know. What do you get for that? I don't even know. But it says that you were referred by me. So, hey, or whoever else's you decide to use. So, yeah, if you haven't done it already, sign up, use the link. I think we're waiting to hear more. Like it shows a count in our accounts. Like once you create your account, you will get a referral link as well, a referral code that's unique to you. So if you have friends and family that you want to introduce the game to, be like, hey, sign up with my referral link. Yeah, it's 15%. Like, I don't know, is that 15% of people's subscription fees are put towards my subscription? Is that 15% of whatever they spend in the cosmetic shop goes into my cosmetic shop? Or like, I don't know. I don't know. But it's something along those lines, and it's available to everyone. It's not I'm not an official Ash's content creator yet. It's hopefully to come, but anybody can get it. You get Intrepid bucks. Okay. So like things that you can spend in the store or spend on your sub fee. So cool. I didn't know. I've looked at it a little bit and be like, hey, what do you get with this? What do you get with this? And then, I go and I watch Jalan's stream, and he's talking about how it almost sounded like he was getting paid for it. And I'm like, that doesn't seem right to me. Like it doesn't seem, I wouldn't think it would be like hey, refer all these people and then you get a portion of what they spend. It's like a network marketing pyramid scheme kind of deal. I was like, that seems a little fishy to me, but really? Oh shit, everybody go, you know what? Cancel your accounts. Go sign up with my code now. Anyways, yeah. No, I'm kidding. Not really. And you guys are all thanking me right now for knowing how to put high limits on my microphone, I bet. According to Steve, it's a way to reward content creators and help out folks with a large family social circle. Social circle? Words are hard. It's midweek, guys. I'm worded out. I'm... There you go. But maybe that'll be my next emote. Something along those lines. If I had a green screen, I'd just take that clip, but yeah. But that's cool. I had no idea the depth that it went to. Man, I bet Jalan's got like hundreds of people on his right now. That dude's gonna be making bank just from people playing this game. Anyways, play style outside of combat. So I kind of touched on this one earlier, but for me, this is a huge aspect of class identity that I haven't seen in another game before. What does your class bring to the table outside of its combat abilities, outside of being able to heal damage, take damage, or cause damage? Essentially. What do you do? What makes you unique and special? What makes you a unique and beautiful snowflake? The rogue, for example, we talked about, can find hidden rooms and doors and passageways that could lead to treasure or secret areas within a dungeon or in the open world. A ranger, I believe, can detect traps and environmental hazards. I don't know what the other ones can do. Those are the only two that I've recall hearing about in terms of their unique out-of-combat abilities. But my understanding is every class was supposed to have something like that. Maybe a bard can sing in a tavern and it gives like a 15% discount to all the drinks sold in that tavern while he's singing or something. I don't know. Maybe you get a bard singing on your freehold and now you get an extra buff, when you and your spouse go to bed. And no, the bard's not singing. Go, wow, wow. Get it out of your heads. Don't be gross. What special abilities do you have, and should they be shared with other classes? And if they are shared, to what degree of effectiveness, right? So I'm going to pick on the rogue here because it's pretty easy. What if there was another class that maybe they took the rogue as a secondary archetype, was now able to find hidden rooms and doors in the world as well? Are there going to be varying degrees of difficulty that, you know what, maybe a rogue that's invested skill points into that ability can find certain doors and passageways that rogues that haven't spec'd into it can't? I would hope so. I would absolutely hope so. And if you can spec into that ability, I would think that that is absolutely going to be a thing. You think it should be racial for that rather than additional class? Are you talking about like there should be unique racial out of combat abilities versus unique class abilities that are out of combat? Or in particular, races should denier finding hidden doors and passages along with all rogues? I'm marinating on that one for a second. A main class ability. I don't think it's something that should be shared with other classes, because I think that would absolutely take away from class identity. 100%. And I don't want that. Even if it was to a lesser degree. If other classes only got it on a basic level, but the rogue could do it even on their base better than... Let's say there's four degrees of difficulty of discoverable passageways and doors, right? So you'd have a basic, a novice, an intermediate, and expert, for example. So your basic would be something that, you know, somebody that has the rogue as a secondary archetype could find. Maybe there's an item, a consumable that you can use that lasts for like 20 minutes or something, and it allows you to see these basic ones. Cool. The rogue can see the basic ones with just skill level 1. The rogue can also see the normal or the novice with skill level 1. But if they want to see the next level, skill level 2, the intermediate, then they got to put a point in there. They want to see the expert, all of them, then they got to put 2 points in there. And so on and so forth. I might be okay with that because the rogue can do it better than anyone else, but it's still, other people can still do it to an extent. How they'd handle it for Denier Rogue, for example. If they were going to make it racial, I feel like they would have to make it make sense to the race. So if a Denier was going to be able to do that, I feel like it should be in certain types of environments, i.e. inside of a cave or along a mountain in super rocky areas where the Denier dwarves are kind of from, right? Like they could detect a crack in the wall or see a crack in the wall and think, hey, maybe there's something behind that. And then have the ability to break through it or require a certain tool or weapon like a hammer or a mace in order to break through it. I think something like that would be really cool for racial, but it would have to make sense to the race and the origins of that race, where it's from, right? Like maybe the Nikwa dwarves would have a bonus to fishing or something, coastal navigation, a bonus to swim speed or something. I don't know. They could detect treasure in the sands maybe just by walking around and be like, hey, there's treasure in the sand. That not be good for the rogue using up points. It brings an element of decision making though, right? There's the cost versus reward, and you know, maybe you're a bit of a dungeon diver, an explorer, a Tomb Raider, if you will, you know, a wannabe Indiana Jones, and if you want to go and find all these hidden treasures, and that's kind of your goal, and now that I'm talking about it, and I want to be a treasure hunter in the game, maybe I'm gonna have to play a rogue. Is you spec into that, now you can find the rarer stuff that the other people that don't spec into it can't find. Sorry, I'm so behind the curve here and asking basic questions. Can you still sign up for the alpha? Do not apologize for asking questions, please. Everybody that's going to be coming in, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of people coming into this game that are going to be quote unquote behind the curve. I was, still am to a degree. I only got introduced to this game less than a year ago, so yeah, please don't ever apologize and ask questions. Ask. Like, our community is great here for that. You can sign up for Alpha 2. Alpha 1 has been closed off for a few years now. There was discussions recently about the possibility of Alpha 1 pre-sales opening up again, but Steven had to dial that back. They've actually had to push the Alpha 1 non-NDA testing dates out. I know it's a sensitive subject, but they did have to get pushed out a wee little bit. So Alpha 2, Beta 1, Beta 2, you can still buy into those packs if you so choose. Alpha 1, we're waiting. We're waiting. A few lucky folks have keys and they will be streaming that and doing content on that. Tavern here is one of them. So, yeah, make sure you check them out. Tavern gave away an Alpha 1 key. Was it yesterday you gave yours away? I saw your Twitter post, I think, today. Dante won it. One of the Dantes, anyway. But yeah, it's so they are available if you want to go for the Alpha 2 route. I know a lot of us here are in on that package already. So come Alpha 2, we're gonna be right in there. I was watching, but I could not enter. Yeah, I could have done some things to better position myself to have one of those keys by now, but I don't think I did. No Twin, hello, good to see you. Alpha 2 gang, indeed. I'll have to keep that in mind, yeah. The giveaway ended Friday. Okay. We were just re-rolling the winner. Yes. I was signed up in the giveaway. Okay, so yeah, playstyle out of combat. And I do very much like the idea of racial defining abilities, but I don't think they should take away from class defining abilities. If they want to share them, for example, the Denier being able to find hidden doors and passages, I think they have to make sense to the race. You know, maybe Talnars get bonus stats when they are underground. Or like bonus abilities in combat when they're underground. A bonus to sight when they're underground, because they're no doubt going to be a little bit more nocturnal unless the bioluminescence underground is just insane, which, I mean, well, we've all seen the artwork that the studio is capable of, so very, very likely that's also the case. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, and this was kind of a last minute thought I had just before stream, actually, and falls a little bit in line with playstyle out of combat. Oh, CS Savage, what are you doing? Who do you think we are around here, huh? Get the fuck out of my channel. Huh? You don't need that shit. But if you want to become famous, just buy all the things, man. You can buy your popularity. It'll be fine. You want to be famous? Oh, don't worry. I'll hook you up. Bigfollows.com. You hear me? We'll go check it out after. Fucking hell. Yeah, I did. I'm quick on these guys. They're meme content at best. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're a creator, I don't care what level you're starting out at. I've been seeing these things coming into my chat from day one. If you fall for that shit, I mean, that's on you. That's on you. I hadn't seen them in quite a while, actually. And then last week and then tonight again was the first time in quite a while that I've seen those things coming through here. So I don't know. Maybe Twitch is doing something to step up the game a bit. But I'm just going to replay this one for now in the background since we're not really paying attention to it. All right. Items. What do you guys think about consumables or even equipment that has unique abilities on it that add class-defining abilities to the list? Like, let's say there's a potion you can drink that allows you to detect traps and environmental hazards, regardless of what class you are. You could be a mage, you drink this potion, and boom, for the next 5 minutes, you can detect these things. I'm with Dread. I'm a hard no on that. Hard no on that, because it then takes away that unique ability of that class, and you might choose to not bring that class as a result. That's a big no for me. That absolutely destroys class identity for me. Not entirely. That's not to say that if such a potion existed, Rangers are just a nothing class now. Absolutely not. But it takes one of their big features, one of their big draws, and one of the big things that they bring uniquely to a group away from them. So regardless of how easy or hard it is to get, regardless of how effective that potion is, you know, maybe if it had a 90% chance to kill you when you drank it, and a 10% chance to give you the buff for like 2 minutes, I could get behind it, because chances are I'm going to watch you do it and die, and then I'm going to laugh at you. But that still takes away from class identity to me. Stuff that is useful for anyone is good for that sort of stuff, though, like improved vision perception, but that shouldn't give ability to find hidden stuff. Absolutely. If it's something that defines a class and their special abilities, whether it's in combat or out, I don't want to see it necessarily done by an item. At least not as effective. I mean, the reason I say not as effective is because obviously there's the argument of, well, hey, I've got a healing potion because I can't heal myself. Does that make the cleric useless? No. There's certain things that have to be in there, but it's not going to be anywhere nearly as effective as having a pocket cleric behind you running around healing you whenever you take damage. You know, I mean, who doesn't love to have their own personal heal bot? So there's an element of play there, and maybe it comes back to the conversation we were just having, where there could be 4 variations of effectiveness, and only the most basic level of effectiveness is provided outside of that class's ability. Theme. Your class theme. I feel like that's really important. Get out of here. You just make my shit crash. When I think of a class theme, it's like, when you think of a mage, you have a vision that pops in your head of what a mage is, or a wizard. Like, essentially, the names are rather synonymous. I'm not thrilled that rogue is going to be assassin, but I'm still going to do it. But do you mean by name assassin, or because do you feel forced to go and assassinate diplomats? Assassin is an order-based thing. I agree with that. I feel like that is more of a title that should be earned than a class you choose to play. But that's based on our understanding or definition of an assassin versus it being a class or a play style within the game. You know, let's pick on the assassin for a second. If you're going to take a rogue and turn it into an assassin, what's the differentiating features that you would expect to see along the way to define it as an assassin, to make it an assassin? I think of probably improved stealth. Number 1, it definitely improves stealth. Number 2, probably a massively increased critical rate, critical damage modifier due to your ability and knowledge of pressure points and vital spots. You would be more likely to hit those weak spots on your enemy, possibly doing even lethal damage very, very quickly, such as being able to ambush somebody in the back out of stealth if they are, you know, not a higher level character or player or monster or whatever. Maybe it's a one-shot because you can just come up behind them and dagger in the base of the skull, sever their spinal cord, and they're done. When I think of an assassin, that's what I think of. I don't think of like some jumpy ninja throwing ninja stars and bouncing all over the place. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I want that in the game, but that's how I picture an assassin when I think of it, right? When I think of the theme of an assassin, that is what I think of. You know, if you've ever played Assassin's Creed, especially the early ones, you could basically come up behind somebody and one-shot them. Or you did crazy lethal damage because you hit their vital spots. That is class defining. Whereas a rogue is more of, when I think about it, it's not necessarily a fighter per se. You know, they typically, they don't hit for as hard, but they hit faster and they hit a little bit more of the dangerous or the vital spots, but not as effectively. They might get a little carried away. They can stealth. You know, rogues do it from behind. It's been a meme since WoW came out in 2005, 2004, right? Poison, bleed, yep, absolutely. That might make you see blood. Hey, I'm sure there will be like a slider or a toggle switch about the level of gore or seeing blood or something like that, right? Like, but yes, absolutely. Poisons, bleed damage, that very, very synonymous with the rogue and even more so with the assassin, I feel. The potency of those poisons could be so much more with an assassin. Like you could do, maybe you get a blow dart gun. That would be super cool. You shoot fire a blow dart with a poison tip on it, hit somebody in the neck, and then they're paralyzed on the ground for you to feast or do whatever it is you do with a paralyzed body. No judgment here. I'd probably barbecue. Exactly. If they reveal themselves, it is to guarantee a kill on their target. I feel like they should be opportunists completely unable to hold their own in a melee. That's a fair statement. That is a very, very fair statement. Their expertise is not on getting hit. It's about not being seen to get hit. Therefore, in a fray, if they get hit, they're toast, you know? I want rainbows to spill out if I damage another player. I don't know if that'll be a feature, but we'll have to wait and see. That would be cool. It would be fun to see. It would absolutely be fun to see. I hope from most things at the moment. Having said that, I do hope that there are different colors of blood for different types of creatures. That would be cool. So I think theme is incredibly important to address, and I'm very curious to what I would like to see a bit of a descriptor for each of the 64 classes when we get there. You know, obviously we have those. I believe it was in the it was on the old website. I don't know where it is on the new one now. Let's go look in here for a sec. Read news on the tank. So they did a little bit of a blurb, right? For each of the 3 classes they've revealed so far. On the blog on the website, they have given a bit of a blurb about what the class is and what makes them that. They gave us some identity to it. I really, really hope that we see the same thing for these classes, which, I mean, technically looking at this as an individuality thing is not a class, it's an archetype, but and it's the combined 2 archetypes that make up the class, if we want to get into Ash's terminology, which I need to do. I hope there's class identity given in these updates, and we'll have to wait and see as things come out. We are a long ways away from seeing secondary archetypes and classes making their way onto the website. But when they do, I hope it's something like this. It gives a little bit of character, definition, and talks a little bit about just the theme of the class as well. Again, how are you going to differentiate a blade dancer, from a high sword, from a weapon master, from a spell sword, from a hunter, from a shadow blade, from a blade caller, from a dreadnought. Yo, apple bottom jeans, how's it going? Good to see you, good to see you. Always bleed rainbows. Bases are good, but let's see all 64 combos. So, like, if you can't differentiate these 8 classes enough that I can sit back and watch you play and be like, oh yeah, you're this or you're that or XYZ, then in my opinion, you have somewhat failed at class identity. If they all look the same, you know, if it's just my ignorance of the variety of classes and what they bring to the table, then that's on me for not knowing everything, all 64 classes and what every single one of them can do. It sounds really, really overwhelming. But if you can watch and see that, hey, there's differences happening here. I've watched a blade dancer play before. This looks different. It's not a blade dancer. It's something else. I don't know what it is, but it's something else. And, you know, maybe it's a blade caller. Maybe it's a high sword. That is important. That for me is important if we're going to think of 64 class identities. If we're thinking of 8 class identities, it becomes a whole lot easier. Whole lot easier. Pretty hard to do it in the best of circumstances, since anyone can wear any armor or use any weapon. You may recognize some base abilities. That's the thing. Armor and weapons will not be a part of class identity whatsoever. And I'm so happy to see that stigma broken. So happy to see that stigma broken. That you are not, as a mage, pigeonholed into wearing cloth armor. You can wear plate, you can wear cloth, you can wear leather or mail, or you can wear porcelain for all I care. You can wear someone else's skin. We'll call you Leatherface. I don't know, but you can do it. Well, maybe you can't wear someone else's skin. I don't think that'll actually be in the game. It would be neat, but the Tallnar kind of do that already. Anyways. But it's that will not be a class defining thing, and that I think is super exciting, and it does put that much more importance onto abilities. And I don't just mean the flashy look of the abilities, but what about its effect as well? When can you use it? Where is it effective? What does it do? Not just how flashy it is or what color or particle effects it brings to the table. Just comment there on the wiki makes me think that we won't see a huge difference. That's kind of what I was getting at near the top of stream, was these are just flavors of the base archetype. So the base archetype is going to have your class identity. For me, that's going to be the key class identity. These other parts are just different flavors of that class identity. So I don't think they will be so impactful that they will create their own class identity over top of, like, a blade dancer isn't going to be so much different than a high sword that it's going to be obvious, and that you would be like, hey, I need a blade dancer for this, not a high sword. The high amount of class choices with 64 possibilities will make it hard for one player to know all. Yeah, a really good raid leader should all classes in that game. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough to know. And there's 4 flavors to each secondary archetype, right? So you might be a spell sword, but how have you assigned your secondary augments, and have you put any skill points into those? Because there's 4 flavors that you can choose from for your abilities. And again, you can either choose to go wide and broad and go into a lot of things, or you can choose to specialize in just a few. So even for a spell sword, there's going to be different flavors of spell sword. Depending on your biome that you're in, the element that you choose might be stronger or weaker. Depending on if you're PvE or PvP focused, you might go for more CC versus more like burn damage over time. it really depends on the playstyle and the character, but that is going to be a thing. So there's not 64 different classes. There's 256 flavors of class. Possibly even more if you're not stuck into like, okay, if mage is my secondary archetype and I choose frost, it's not frost for all of my abilities, it's frost for that one ability. For the next ability, I get to make those 4 choices again. Then this matrix just becomes exponentially larger. Between the 8 classes within the base. It's a good thing that they won't be that way though, because that form of exclusivity leads down some of the crappy paths that both WoW and Arcage went down. How do you mean, Dread? What are the 4 flavors for abilities? So it's unique to each secondary archetype, Apple Bottom. But like the mage, for example, if you choose mage as your secondary archetype, you can choose between the teleportation school magic, frost, fire, or lightning. So when you augment an ability, you can augment it with one of those 4 schools of magic. So let's say, for example, you're a scion, a ranger primary, mage secondary. You could put frost onto one of your arrow abilities, and now you have the frost element on that arrow ability. So you could inherently slow or freeze a target just by using that arrow ability. Inversely, if you were a mage fighting as a ranger, there's going to be 4 different ranger flavors that you can add to your mage abilities. What those are, we don't know yet. We haven't even seen the ranger class. I don't think too many of the other classes have much in the way of augmentation information. Say that 10 times fast. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But I don't think that they can reasonably or realistically go to a point where each of these 64 classes is uniquely different or exclusive in any way, shape, or form especially from any of the other 7 in that tree. Jared, I'm curious what you mean about that the exclusivity can actually be dangerous for leading down crappy paths. Are you talking about like just bad classes? Or are you talking about bad specs within those classes? Because I think we touched on this before, but class should define spec, not spec defining class. I think is an important approach to that design. But yeah, I'm really excited to start seeing some more classes. There is very, very, very strong belief in the community right now from some of the little bits of teasers that we've seen, the breadcrumbs that we're all overthinking and overanalyzing right now, that the Ranger is the next class on the reveal list. Or next archetype, I should say, on the reveal list. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I mean, I know everybody wants to see everything. We'll get there in time, but personally, I really want to see the Ranger. Sense of individuality from other classes. What separates you from other classes? Yes, there is a pick of a Ranger on the new schedule update. Absolutely. That was one of the first things I noticed. I noticed that before I even noticed that the current NDA alpha schedule was extended, overlapping the other schedules. I noticed the Ranger first. It should be, I'm assuming Summoner will be very last for sure, as it is reliant on who knows how many summon models. I think you're probably right. And it's also because they really need the tank, the DPS, and the heals systems and styles really well fleshed out, since you will be able to summon something with that kind of fits into one of those 3 roles. So I believe I remember somebody saying that before. I can't remember if it was a community member or somebody on the live stream panel, but You're gonna see the warrior, probably not anytime soon. I imagine we'll get fighters soon. I can see ranger and fighter and rogue likely in the near future. I think summoner and bard are going to be our last two, to be honest. Bard, I don't know which one's going to be last. You know, Dread makes a really good point about the summoner likely being last just due to the additional models it needs. But there's also an additional item contribution that the bard has with their instruments. So we'll have to see where the bard falls in to all of that as well. This is an interesting point that I wanted to talk about. Can another class fill your job or your role? And does that break class identity? If in the context, let's think of outside of Ashes of Creation for a minute. And let's talk about tanks. In WoW, there are multiple classes that can tank. They all bring something unique to the table in how they do it, what their pros, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. You know, like WoW Classic right now, warrior tanks, they're the best single target threat and by far the best mitigation in the game when it comes to tanking. They've got the most oh shit buttons should things go wrong. That's the warrior. The bear druid brings a little bit of AoE ability that the warrior doesn't have. Has pretty darn good threat generation, and they're almost armor capped very easily and have a massive health pool. But they don't have as much damage mitigation as a warrior, and they don't have any oh shit buttons really to deal with things. It's pretty much, if you can't take the hit, you're dead. If your healers can't heal you enough, you're dead. It's pretty basic. But they are two very, very different playstyles. They both depend on rage, which is kind of its own thing. Then there's the paladin tank. Well, sure, right now it's exclusive to one faction, but the paladin tank nonetheless is there. They are the strongest AoE tank in the game because, well, they have the best AoE ability that out of the tank groups. Their threat generation, I don't know too much about them because I play Horde, is not as good as the other two, is my understanding. And as far as their mitigation and oh shit buttons go, I don't know that they have too many. I know they've got the bubble, but that automatically drops threat. They can kind of sit there and just heal themselves a little bit, but not too well, not too effectively when you're getting hit constantly and pummeled. So, but they use mana as a resource and their abilities to generate threat. They got AoE. They bring a little bit more raid utility with their buffs and blessings and auras and things like that. So you have three different classes that can do the same job or role, more or less. Each one has the areas that it excels in. Each one has areas that it's weaker in. Easy peasy. In Ashes, we're not going to see that with tanks so much, unless like what we talked about where you've got a tank as your secondary archetype, and maybe your gear is focused more on mitigation and the tank stuff. You might not have the ability to taunt enemies. This is even assuming the tank has a taunt ability, which we've talked about previously. Again, the playstyle is going to be quite a bit different than what you have if you're a tank primary. There's three styles of tanking on the wiki. There's dodge tank, shield block, and control. Which control, I can only guess on right now is about debuffing more than CCing and stun locking. Right, like disarming, damage reduction debuffs, or bleeds, or something that increases cast time, things like that. But yes, these are three different build options. My understanding is they will all be effective in their own right. You know, you won't need a shield as an you probably won't even want a shield as an evasion tank because you're going to want to be a little lighter on your feet. You might not even want to be wearing plate or mail armor. You might want to try to wear leather armor potentially. We'll have to wait and see exactly how the nuances of the role play out. But it gives that the tank that true tank identity at 100% in my mind. So if another class can fulfill your job or role, I don't think, not for me, that's not breaking of class identity. It's how they fill that job or role that is more definitive of that. Right? Like a mage is a caster DPS. Well, guess what? A summoner is probably a caster DPS as well. But how they do their damage and how you play the class is going to be quite a bit different from each other. Especially when you're going to get into similar levels of effectiveness. The variation in playstyle is going to be significant enough that you will know one from the other. Think of controls like a gladiator or myrmidon. Leather with some plate with nets, chains or things like that for binding, tripping, disarming. That's just how I imagine it. Okay. Yeah. I think of it as just disabling and frustrating the fuck out of your opponent. Honestly, a control tank sounds like a shitload of fun in like 1v1 PvP just to troll people and be a dick. Just sit there, keep tripping them, disarm them, blind them. You know, like kick sand in their face and they're in their camera so they can't see. That's kind of how I envision that. That would be absolutely hilarious to bear witness to, I think. But I don't think, for me, this isn't breaking of class identity if it's implemented properly, which I'm honestly not concerned about it with this team. I think it'll be just fine. Do you have overlapping characteristics, abilities, or play styles? If they're too similar, you know, like a mage casts Fireball and a summoner casts Shadow Bolt. If you know they both do roughly the same thing and is done the same way, and it turns out that's the most effective way to do good damage with your classes, that now you're starting to break class identity a little bit, in my opinion, that way. Just because the color of what you're casting is different doesn't differentiate the class so much. So, but I don't think that'll be something that we're gonna really see and worry about. I think the closest thing classes that we're gonna see kind of conflict with each other are gonna be fighter and rogue, and bard and cleric. But that's my speculation right now. I'm fine with all other classes outside of tank, main. Can't really off-tank or manage tanking at all. Same goes for other class identities. I feel like for the most part, every class has a role, and the fact that they are being designed and balanced around having one of each primary archetype in your group, that says a lot, that these classes are all going to bring something of value to the group. And to say that, you know, hey, I don't have a mage to bring to my group tonight, I'm going to replace them with a summoner. You know, you might be lacking a certain thing, but it's you're probably not going to be in a position where you cannot do the content unless you bring the mage. So class identity will be there. It'll bring value, but I don't think it's going to be, you're not going to be forced to bring those classes with you everywhere you go, completely and diversely. The class system remind me FF11 class party system. Imagine that a summoner may be able to off tank with their summon thing. If it's the tank one, yeah, I believe they will be able to. I think of it as a Void Walker to your Warlock in WoW. last thing, I guess. And this is, I put this out there at the start, and I'm going to ask again. How important is class identity to you? Does it matter? Do you care? Does it impact your play? Does it impact your immersion and your experience? For me, it is very important. It is absolutely important that class identity exists in the game. I want there to be that unique value that everything has. For both just diversity in the game and, you know, one of my biggest reasons for wanting to play alts in games like this is to just have something different. It's just to have a different play style from what I'm doing right now. And if every class can do everything, like apparently what retail WoW is nowadays, then what's the point? You know, or if you got the job system like in Final Fantasy 14, where you can just go and switch jobs whenever you want to. That totally breaks the immersion for me. And that immersion is very important for me. Important, each of the primary 8 should be needed for something. I think they will be. I think they'll all bring something to the team, to the group, but I don't think it'll be, hey, if you don't bring each 8, then you can't do this. Unless it's like some crazy complex puzzle or something like that everybody has to do, fulfill their certain role at some point. Otherwise, you don't, you know, unlock the final boss chamber, the treasury vault in Fallow's Hold or something, you know. No one really wants to be that guy in the class that doesn't fit into any specific need. I think that's the bigger thing. It's not about, hey, I'm needed for this. It's about, hey, I'm needed for something. I'm just here for the sake of being here. It's important, but hard to imagine actually making 64 different playstyles. Absolutely, Echo. And hello, by the way. You're 100% right. I like I say, I think it's going to be 8 playstyles, and those the augments that come to those 8 are going to just be, you know, different flavors that'll enhance the playstyle or the content that you're focused on. I think focusing on those 8 and getting those honed in with their identities, their playstyles, and the values that they bring to the group is the most important focus. It's important, however, fine if my fighter is similar to rogues. Maybe they will have different debuffs and different burst damage. Playing each feels different. That's the playstyle needs to be different, right? Obviously, they're both melee DPS. That's unavoidable. Can they step back and use the ranged weapon when necessary? Sure. Are they both going to be able to provide bleeds? Well, weapon trees are a thing that you can put points into. And you might be able to spec into bleeds for your weapon, regardless of what. I could be a mage, and my sword could do bleed because I've specced into that. Is it the best build for my class? Maybe not, but I could do it. I have the ability, the agency to do so. That is the cool aspect. Echo, thank you so much for the follow, my friend. I appreciate that. That's it. That's our discussion, guys. That's what I wanted to talk about tonight. I feel like we've put a lot out there. I'm really, really happy with that. Dread Katak coming in with 5 gifted subs. My guy. Dude. Puts in his own resub tonight and throws out 5 gifted subs. Guys, if you just got a gifted sub from Dread Katak, be sure to thank him in chat. Refresh that browser. Wrap up those emotes, you guys. Thank you so much, Dread. I really appreciate that. I really wish I could change the one out of that my emote default command, but it's part of that default thing. I can't get rid of it, but 8 classes with 8 specs, how it feels to me. Yes, in a way. It's almost like 8 classes with 64 specs, considering each one has its own 4 flavors for each one, but yeah. Just do it. Oh, is that... you can change it then? Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, I'll just hurry up and get partner. I've contemplated so much of just like doing this and streaming on YouTube or streaming on YouTube, and it's like, I don't know. But this is where the community hangs out, so this is where I'm at. Makes no difference to me. As long as we're all hanging out. No Twin, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Thank you. I don't think the 4 will be for all augments. from what the information that we've seen, they've said it will be, but who knows, right? Like some abilities might not have 4 options of augment to it. It might only have 1 because of the nature of the ability, right? Like what happens if you're a ranger and you put a teleport ability from your mage onto one of your arrow attacks? Does that change it from a ballistic calculation into a hit scan calculation? Because it just teleports the arrow right to the target and pow, right in the kisser? How crazy is that gonna be for active combat? I don't know. The possibilities right now, because of what we don't know. Cleric should have a heal one? Absolutely. 4 from secondary archetype plus all the other augments we can get, going to get complex real. It is. It's going to get really complex real quick. I do hope there is a decent tutorial at the start of the game that kind of explains things. I mean, we live in an age now where there is so much information on the internet before a game even comes out that somebody who even is remotely curious can probably find anything and everything they're looking for, to the point where it's too much information. But that being said, there is so many sub layers in Ashes that are planned out. I mean, look at the progression systems video we did a couple weeks ago. How many different progression systems there are in the game. And this, like, at this stage, there's a lot. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of ways to build your characters out. There's a lot of areas that you can focus on. And I know Steven's vision for the game is to have more things to do than anyone can do, which is bold, because there's a lot of people out there that are going to no-life the fuck out of this game. And I know I hope to be one of them. But that's absolutely going to be huge. If for people that can spend, 10 hours a day playing this day after day after day after day, and for there to be enough for them to do for a long period of time, by having all of these horizontal progression systems, is huge. That on top of the node system, the lifespan is crazy. But yes, there's a lot of depth to the game. The biggest thing is that a lot of it is lateral movement, not vertical movement, and that's going to be very, very important for people to understand. Even still, a lot of those secondary augments that you get through religious factions, social organizations, mayorship, or guilds, or whatever else, might not necessarily be always available for your abilities. They might be somewhat situational or event-based augments. Being rewarded for whatever you decide to do is very important. Absolutely. I love the fact that there is going to be a ton of opportunities for people to play this game and never have to worry about combat. Well, maybe to an extent. They'll have to get to level 50 or whatever, but like they're not going to have to go out and raid or PvP and do all this stuff. They could have a very, very meaningful and fulfilling game experience just being within a node, within a city or a metropolis, being a politician, promoting a religion, or being an artisan of sorts. They could focus on economic aspect of the game and just trying to get super, super rich. The ability for players to do that is huge. And, a lot of people are going to get their own identity that way. I will raise his hand, retired life, no life. I love it. Tank plus cleric or cleric plus tank, decisions. Gonna have to get in there and play both. It like right now, I have my eye on a Scion, but I want to try all the things, man. I want to try all the things. At least the base 8, I want to try and play with to an extent and find what really is going to be my play style. Like The tank looks like a shitload of fun. The mage looks sexy as hell. The fighter, I feel like it's going to be a beast, you know? The rogue, I love playing the rogue in WoW. No stranger to that. The ranger seems like just a melee controlling machine. The summoner is going to have a good variety of gameplay to it and have the ability to probably really cause a menace on the battlefield. You know, like, everybody brings something fun and unique to the table, and I do want to try them all. It's going to be really, really hard to settle on just one to really put my time and energy into, because I feel like if you split your time 50-50 between two characters, you're never going to be as good or as strong or whatever it is, and whatever your area of focus is, as somebody who puts 100% of their time into something else. Even if you put more time in overall, that focused effort is going to be huge. Perhaps rise in the religious ranks, run a tavern, become a ship-hand elite. There's mariner classes. You can progress in a mariner system. You want to be Captain Blackbeard, no legs, with your eye patch? Go right ahead. I just hope you get a parrot on your shoulder. Then you'll be my friend. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe I took your legs. I don't know, because we fought on sea. The economic side is really exciting. Absolutely. Absolutely. At first, I ignored the economy. The more I learn, the more I realize it's going to eat up about a third of my gameplay. The economy is going to be really intense. Like, there's even going to be a stock market in the game. I hope it's not anything like the real stock market that is often going down anytime I buy something. Side. There's going to be a stock market in the game. In I believe it's only going to be available in Metropolis economic nodes. But you will be able to invest in guilds. Like, if there's a guild that is going to go and take on a legendary world boss, you can invest in them and their ability to do so. How exactly you're going to make money off of that, I don't know. Like, you just get a portion of the gold, the thing drops or something. I don't know. But the point is you can do that. I can't wait to get out on the high seas and sail around, though. That is going to be a high seas treasure hunter. That is what I am. That is what I'm looking for. It's also crazy how intertwined it is with all the other aspects. Everything is so intertwined. Oh, is it ever? Like, Virtue is going public in a couple years. What do you mean? Going public? Oh, yeah. I want to get on the IPO. All right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, stock market. Maybe Virtual will have its own cryptocurrency by then too. Why not? Everybody's doing it. Make the guild logo a fancy NFT and sell it for like 50 Bitcoin. There you go. Guild funded for years, ladies and gentlemen. Strongest guild in the server. Anyways, you guys. That's it. That's our class identity discussion. I'll be, as usual, I'll trim this one up. It'll go up on the YouTube channel as well. If you guys aren't already subbed on the YouTube channel, please do so. Greatly, greatly appreciated. Helps me out, you know, all the fancy jazz. Look at this. This is why I want to be a denier. Look at this architecture. This I believe is a Metropolis. We've cross-referenced this image with several other concept art images that share the same aesthetics, the same environment. They have the bridge going over the canyon. There's a big mountain on this side of it. It's going to be a pretty well fortified city or metropolis, because you can really only attack it from the east or west unless you come across this bridge on the south side. So the bridge will be a tough thing to defend. Now, there's supposed to be destructible environments in the game. To what degree, I do not know. Like, I know you'll be able to knock down castle walls and city walls and things like that. You broke my shitty wall. But will you be able to take out the bridge? Because that could be a defensive strategy. You take out your own bridge if you see a whole bunch of enemy forces coming along. Just like, boom, blow up your bridge. You're done. Move your defenses to the east and west and go from there. You immediately eliminate one full side of attack. If you ever get a chance to talk to Laura about the in-game stock market, he's got some thoughts. Okay. Maybe we'll have to do a piece on that in an upcoming stream discussion. I mean, since it's a Denier Metro, I could probably step over the wall in my Renkai. All right, relax. I'll be honest, like, the Denier architecture and everything really, really appeals to me. It does. I love the look of it. I love the stories that we have behind the dwarfs, you know, Dilia's diary and all that. It's some great lore. At the same time, we don't have a lot of backstory, lore, and concept art for a lot of the other races yet. And if the hitbox thing turns out to be fairly even amongst all character model sizes, which we're still waiting on confirmation on their approach to that and balancing it, I might be leaning towards a Renkai. For the little bit of art and architecture that we've seen for them, I am a fan. I really, really like it as well. So I might have to have one of each. We'll see, but it's a thing. Let's just do rope bridges to all our villages, right? It's just cut and burn it, man. Just one mage fireball and boom, that bridge is gone. You don't even have to invest siege equipment. Be nice to my tiny people. Not even taller than a brazier. Brazier. Lady Tilt always gets mad at me whenever I call him a brazier. I understand the difference, okay? I do. Gee whiz. I don't know. I see it written that way and that's how I say it, all right? Renkai, yes, join me, join the organization. I might. We'll see. I might. Understandably. Yeah. The problem in this game is I want to play so many classes and races. I just don't have enough time for it all. I don't think anybody does. Even if you're going to no-life this game, I don't think you have time to play it all. You might have a chance to dabble in it all, but yeah, like that's going to be the true jack of all trades, master of none scenario. For what our expected time sink is just to hit max level, never mind excelling in any of the other progression paths. Like that is serious time commit. Now, of course, over the course of years, absolutely it's going to happen. Absolutely, it's going to happen. People are going to do it. They're going to have one of each primary archetype, assuming there's enough character slots to do so, and a variety of races. But within the first year, I don't see anybody having... Well, actually, no. You never know. You underestimate me. Challenged! Do it! But we have to put a time frame on it then. Because obviously, given enough time, anybody can do it. You know, 10 years from now, 10 years after the game's been out, anybody that's been playing for that entire time is probably going to have at least one of everything leveled. Within the first year, it'll be someone with maxed out of each archetype. Yeah, absolutely. There'll be more than one. It's going to be neat to see. It's going to be neat to see, though. Like, obviously, there's a lot of context to take into their valuation of how long it's going to take to level. You know, I was laughing about this the other day. You know, up here in Canada, when someone said, like, when you're explaining to someone how far away something is, we don't say, oh yeah, that's 150 miles down the highway or whatever. It's, oh no, that'll take about an hour and a half to get there. You know, how fast you drive? Well, you might go you might beat the time, you might be less. You know, the route you decide to take, if there's multiple routes, could be quicker, could be longer. But we never measure in distance. We don't give that absolute value. We give you a measure of time. And that's just how it is. And I feel like this is the same scenario. Is looking at how long it's going to take to level. Are you doing it in the... what are you doing it to that level? Is this like half of that time running around town just goofing off?